So I'm now going to introduce you to Vectary and how to use it to create a 3D model for your augmented reality experience. I already have an account, but I'm going to walk you through making an account just in case you need some help along the way. So here we are, we're at vectary.com. Click on sign up. You can sign in with an existing Google or Facebook account, or you can create a new account. I am going to put in a made up email address because I already have an account and I don't need to be able to access this one again. But what I would say is please do use your real email and an email address that you can have access to in case at any point you forget your password and you can use it to reset it. I'm signing up with just whatever because I don't need to use this account again. First two of these tick boxes are for terms and conditions. You do need to agree to them. The third one you can ignore. And then you also can ignore these questions. If it tells you you have to put something in, just gibberish, really doesn't matter. And you can skip where the skip button is available and just click like whatever you want in these buttons and these boxes. And you can put whatever name that you want in. It doesn't have to be your real name. Those questions are just sign up related questions so they can get some information about you. You really don't have to put anything real in there or spend any significant amount of time over it. Just wanted to show you that process to make sure that there's no stress around getting past those questions before we get to here, which is your dashboard. And this is where we want to be when we start creating. So we're using the beta rather than the Studio 3.0. Go straight in, click to create a new project using the beta. It'll remind you here that it's a beta, i.e. it's in testing mode. Some things may be not quite finished. That doesn't matter. Just press continue. Once we're in, you are in your 3D space. This grid represents the ground, and the way to move around is using your mouse buttons. So click and drag. This is the left-hand mouse button that I'm using at the moment for this type of movement. And click and drag the right mouse button for this kind of side to side. So we've got sort of angles on your left button and moving around on the right hand button. And then you zoom with the middle mouse button. If you're on a laptop, it may be that your zoom is scrolling on the touchpad. However you would normally scroll if you don't have a middle mouse button is how you scroll to zoom in this. Left hand side, it shows us that we've got nothing in our project at the moment. We're going to go to this top menu here and choose a sphere. We're going to start building. Just get straight into it. You can follow along with me and you'll guess pretty quickly what we're making. So once you get your sphere, the fact that it's got a yellow line around it shows that it's selected currently, and you can also see it on the left-hand side in your project panel. This little gizmo that appears whenever you're selected on something allows you to move it, rotate it, and also these squares allow you to resize it as well. Outside of using that gizmo that you'll get on any object that you are using, if you're using something from this drop down, one of these boxes here, you get these handles. So they look like a white dot with a purple circle around it, and you can use them to change attributes of the shape that you've chosen. Because this is a sphere, all it has is basically the radius, so you can make it bigger or smaller. So now you're going to guess pretty quickly what I'm making if you haven't already seen the example. We're going to drop in a cylinder again from the same menu and use these handles again to make the changes that we want. You've got a length and a width, and the difference here with the cylinder is it's also got this third handle that you can use for the kind of sharpness of the edges. So as you can see, you can make them very curved or you can have very sharp edges. Those again are click and drag in order to use them. So we're going to make it taller and we're going to make it thinner. And if I move around, so now you can see that we've got two objects. I put them together and I'm kind of going for a lollipop vibe. You probably figured that out. Might make that a little bit smaller. You'll notice I'll just be fiddling around with it. But yes, we've now got our two items here. If you want to group them together so that you can move them at once, click on one in the project panel here, hold down the control key and click on the other so that they're both selected. They'll be in grey. Right click and choose group. So now they're in a folder. So you've got a folder called group that you can rename if you want. And you've got 2 objects underneath it that you also can rename if you want. I am going to talk to you about texturing for those of you who just want to stick with this part. And then I'm going to add a little bit extra if you want to edit your model a little bit more, give it a bit more of a lollipop feel. So the great thing about Vectary is this library tab just next to the project tab. There's loads of stuff in here. Don't get overwhelmed with what shows up at first. That's because we're kind of under the kind of collections, the everything bit. But if you go to the third option along here, materials, you'll see a really nice selection of materials that you can use to texture your objects. What you will notice is when I'm already clicked on one, so as you can see, because these are grouped, the yellow line shows that I'm selected all the way around. But when I'm clicked on them, you can see they already have materials. So just popping back into the project for now and select, say, just the sphere. So again, you can see that I'm selecting just the sphere. It's got this grey material, which you could change however you wanted. There's kind of a colour slider if you wanted to make it bubblegummy, like take the opacity down a little bit. There's a lot of things that you can play around with without using the materials that are built in. But you also, like I said, you've got this kind of whole list here if you want to use the ones that are already in the program. So you would kind of go down and pick the one that you want. I'm going to say, this one looks kind of candy-like. You just click on the one that you want while you've got that object selected and it will colour it. So again, if I just want to colour this kind of the stick of the lollipop, I could change the material here. If I just wanted it to be white, I could just go in and make it colour white from the colour picker. Or there's one I quite like here that's a sort of gradient, yellowy white kind of colour. That I've chosen from their sort of pre-made options. So now you kind of have your lollipop done and ready. You could export it as it is and it would be ready to go. I'm going to show you how to do a little tiny bit more editing to make it look more lollipop-ish. So let me select my sphere. This is what we're going to work on. The thing is, once you're in Vectary, if you want to edit your shapes, so you've got this drop down of basic shapes, but if you want to make any edits to them, you double click and you'll be asked whether you want to convert it to geometry. This means you're basically saying this is no longer a sphere, it's just an object. And I'm going to make changes to it. It no longer holds any of the attributes of a sphere. It won't behave in the same way as a sphere, it's just an object. And you say, yes, I'd like to convert it to geometry. And you can now see that it's made up of faces. So while you're in edit mode, as you can see, there's an exit edit mode button at the top. So you can see that you're in edit mode. Your top navigation bar will also change slightly, but we're not going to be using any of the extras really anyway, so that doesn't matter. But you now can select single faces on your sphere. So you can select just one of these lots of kind of squares and triangles that make up the whole sphere. If you have any trouble selecting singular ones, there's also something in the bottom here. If you can see my mouse is in the very bottom of the screen, where you've got select vertices or select lines or select faces. That's the type of selection. So if for any reason you're having trouble selecting one of these faces, make sure that you're clicked on that select faces option. And for what we're going to do, we want to pick one that's roughly in the middle from top to bottom wise. I'm going to go with there. I may end up changing my mind, but yeah, we'll go with there for now. It really doesn't matter. And we don't want to hand select loads and loads of faces. It's going to take forever. So I'm going to show you some shortcuts of how to select multiple. So we've got a selection toolbar here at the top. It's a little arrow and it has various options for selection. And we want to click this bottom one that says selection jog, which will bring up a menu of items, of basically things you can do with the selection that you've already got. So I've selected this one little square and I can do all of these things to it. And the first one that I want to do is, if you hover over it, you can see that this top right hand one is called loop selection. So when I click that, you'll find that it basically makes a complete loop from the selection that you have all the way around the object. You may find that yours looks like this. If it's looping in the opposite direction, you simply click loop selection again until you get this loop around the middle. of your lollipop top. And then all we need to do after that is just moving slightly around the circle. As you hover over them, you can see what they are. There's one here called grow/shrink. So we click that once to get it to grow once in either direction. And I'm going to press it again. And once again, it's grown one square in each direction. So what you'll find now is when you click back on the yellow part that's selected, you are now selecting all of those faces. So you've gone from that one, and then you've now got all of those selected, and they have one single controller for all of them. And this is where you can move them if you want. We've still got all the same settings on this little movement gizmo that we had on any of our other shapes. So you can do all kinds of strange sort of moving around of the selected faces. You can also Control-Z, undo is exactly the same keyboard shortcut as it would be in any piece of software. What we want to do is grab these cubes, which, as I mentioned, are for resizing. So as you can see, I can click and drag, and because of the way it's selected, any one of them will do this same movement. I can click and drag outwards to kind of make this lollipop middle lumpy bit. I'm curious. Oh, I've gone too far back in now. I'm trying to get it not too sticky outy, because I think when I practiced this, I did it a bit too much. I'm going to say that's all right. That looks like a lollipop, I think. So once you've done that, that's been changed, that's been reshaped. You can press exit, edit mode, and we are back to our lollipop. A few more steps to get it ready before we export it. Firstly, we've got this lovely orangey red material that I added. I'm just going to have a look again at these material properties on the right-hand side, because there's two that I want to change. Firstly, I'm going to drop the opacity down ever so slightly. Opacity being how see-through it is. So opaque, 100% opacity is you can't see through it at all. So I've just dropped it down slightly. I wanted to get a nice round number. There we go. Because obviously we kind of want it to be a little bit see-through. We want to be able to see the stick inside the candy part. And the other thing I'm going to change is this roughness value. And that is basically just making it shinier, taking some of the roughness off the texture so it's got a bit more of a shiny surface to it. I'm not going to change anything else about the cylinder. I think it's fine with the texture as it is. The last step that I will tell you is that using AR.js Studio that we're going to use to create this augmented reality artwork, it will see the marker that you choose as the ground in this scene. So what's a really good idea is to imagine, do I want this when the marker is detected by the camera? What do I want them to see? You kind of don't really want to see the lollipop sort of sticking straight up at you. So what I would do is basically rotate the whole thing so that it's on its side, imagining that the ground is the marker. So because I've got them here in this group, I can rotate them all at once because they're joined together. So grab one of these sort of circular items and you can rotate it down as much as you want, really. I'm then going to kind of move it around just a little bit, just to make it kind of a bit more interesting when it appears on the AR view. But as you can see, I've just moved that so that imagining that this grey floor underneath is your marker, you're now going to see the lollipop appear like this rather than sticking up straight towards you. So now that we're finished with that and you're finished with your lollipop creation, the last thing to do is export it before we move over to AR.js Studio. So to export anything from Vectary, move up to this purple menu, drop-down menu in the very top left-hand corner, and choose Export. For 3D models on the web in any setting, generally you want GLB to be your format. So use the drop-down to change the file format to GLB, and leave all the settings otherwise as they are, and then choose Download. As I've got here, you'll see that it will... Oh, I've just it pops up down the bottom in your downloads folder unless you've specified somewhere else. And because we've not named the project, it's just called project name. So I'm just going to pop into my download folder and change it to lollipop. So that's all we need. You now have your model downloaded exactly as you've made it. You don't need to be able to open this file. So all you need is to know where it is for when we move on to the next step. You don't need to open it. We're now going to jump into AR.js Studio and show you what to do with it next.